Hello and welcome back to the channel. The title probably already gave it away, but today we're talking about everything there is to know about the upcoming live-action Jetsons movie. We're going to be taking a look at the original 1962 animated series, why Hollywood has been trying for decades to revive this futuristic family, the names currently attached to the new film, and the false starts that came before, as well as what fans should realistically expect from this one. But before we begin, let me clear up one important thing. This project is still in early development. There's no official release date, no confirmed production start, no full cast, and no trailer released by Warner Bros. Yet. So, if you've seen some slick-looking Jetsons trailers on YouTube claiming the movie is coming in 2026, treat those very, very carefully because they're fan-made or AI-generated concepts, not official studio footage. With that warning out of the way, let's get right into it. What is the new Jetsons movie? The simple answer is that Warner Bros. Pictures is developing a live-action film based on the Jetsons. The project became news in October 2025 when major trade outlets reported that Jim Carrey was in talks to star, with Colin Trevorrow in talks to direct. Trevorrow is also reportedly in talks to co-write the script with Joe Epstein. Now, that wording matters because in talks doesn't mean locked in, and it doesn't mean that the movie has started filming. It also doesn't mean that Jim Carrey has officially signed a contract to play George Jetson. All it means is that negotiations are happening and the project is being shaped behind the scenes. Still, this news is exciting because the Jetsons is one of the most famous animated families in television history, and a live-action film has been attempted many times before without ever actually reaching the screen. The original show followed George Jetson, his wife Jane, their daughter Judy, and their son Elroy, along with their dog Astro and robot maid Rosie, as they live in a bright futuristic world full of flying cars, moving sidewalks, video calls, robot gadgets, and push-button convenience. That's part of why the idea of a live-action Jetsons movie is both exciting and risky. Their world is iconic, but making it believable, funny, modern, and still faithful to the original series won't be easy. Jim Carrey is in talks, but not officially confirmed. Let's talk about casting. Right now, Jim Carrey is the biggest name attached to the project, but again, the key phrase is in talks. Reports say Carrey is in negotiations to lead the live-action Jetsons movie. Most coverage strongly suggests he'd be playing George Jetson, but until Warner Bros. Confirms it officially, we should avoid treating it like a done deal. That said, it's easy to understand why fans are excited. Jim Carrey is one of the most physically expressive comedic actors in Hollywood history. From The Mask to How the Grinch Stole Christmas to the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, he's repeatedly shown that he can bring cartoon energy into live action without completely losing the character underneath. George Jetson isn't exactly a wild man like Ace Ventura or Dr. Robotnik, but he does live in a wild world. That contrast could work beautifully. George is typically an ordinary family man surrounded by ridiculous futuristic technology, a demanding boss, a hypermodern city, and everyday problems that somehow become absurd sci-fi chaos. And that sort of setup kind of fits Carrey perfectly. He can be frantic, he can be exhausted, he can be silly, but when needed, he can also give a character emotional warmth. As of now, no other casting has been officially reported. We don't know who will play Jane, Judy, Elroy, Rosie, Astro, Mr. Spacely, or any of the new characters created for the film. Some AI-generated trailers online have thrown around celebrity names like Anne Hathaway and Megan Fox, but those aren't reliable casting reports. Right now, the only real casting headline is Jim Carrey in talks. That's all we got there. Colin Trevorrow may direct and co-write. Now let's talk about the creative team. Colin Trevorrow is reportedly in talks to direct the movie and co-write it with Joe Epstein. Trevorrow broke out with the 2012 indie film Safety Not Guaranteed, and after that, he directed Jurassic World in 2015, which became a massive box office hit. He also co-wrote Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom and returned to direct Jurassic World Dominion in 2022. His filmmaking career has often mixed large-scale spectacle with family dynamics and characters trying to function inside worlds much bigger than themselves. And that makes him a very interesting fit for the Jetsons. At its core, the Jetsons isn't just about gadgets. It's about a normal family living in a ridiculous future. The comedy comes from everyday problems being filtered through flying cars, robot maids, conveyor belts, video screens, and push-button machines that make life easier until they make everything worse. Trevorrow's possible involvement suggests that the movie could lean into big, futuristic visuals while still keeping the family dynamic central. Joe Epstein is reportedly in talks to co-write. He's best known recently for his work on HBO's The Idol, including executive producing and writing credits. That doesn't tell us exactly what his Jetsons script will feel like, but it does mean Warner Bros. Is building the project with named writers rather than treating it as a vague idea on a shelf. The Jetsons, much like the Flintstones and Scooby-Doo, is one of those classic properties the studio has been interested in reviving for years now. The big question is whether this version finally makes it beyond development. The long history of failed Jetsons adaptations. One reason fans are cautious is that the Jetsons has been stuck in development for a very long time. Hollywood's tried to revive the franchise a couple of times. There's been live-action movie attempts going back decades. Reports over the years connected various writers, directors, and producers to possible Jetsons films, but none of those versions made it to theaters. Then, in the early 2000s, Adam Shankman was attached to a live-action version. Later, Robert Rodriguez was linked to a CGI and live-action hybrid version around 2007. Warner Bros. Also developed animated film ideas at different points, including a version later associated with director Conrad Vernon. Then, in 2017, ABC ordered a pilot for a live-action Jetsons sitcom. Gary Janetti was set to write, with Robert Zemeckis himself among the executive producers. That version would have updated the family sitcom idea for television, but it never moved forward as a full series. So yeah, this franchise has been through years of almosts. Almost movies, almost sitcoms, almost reboots, almost revivals, and that's why the new Jim Carrey and Colin Trevorrow news is exciting, but still needs caution. Development doesn't always lead to production. In fact, Hollywood history is full of projects that looked promising in trade reports but never made it to the screen. Still, this is one of the most serious live-action Jetsons attempts in years, and having names like Carrey and Trevorrow in the conversation gives it more weight than a random rumor. When could the Jetsons movie release? As of right now, there's no official release date, and that's the most honest answer we've got for you. But the project is still in development, and because the key players are still described as being in talks, the movie hasn't even reached the stage where Warner Bros. Could announce a filming date or release window. A live-action Jetsons film would also require major visual effects. Orbit City, flying cars, futuristic homes, robot helpers, sci-fi workplaces, gadgets, and possibly a fully realized CGI Astro and Rosie, which wouldn't be quick or cheap to produce. Even if deals are finalized soon, the film would still need a finished script, greenlit casting, pre-production, filming, visual effects, editing, marketing, and distribution planning. So any online claim that the film is definitely coming in 2026 should be absolutely ignored until Warner Bros. Themselves confirms it. A realistic release would depend entirely on how quickly development moves, but for now, the live-action Jetsons movie is still in development and does not yet have an official release date. A quick trip back to the original Jetsons. Now, let's rewind to the 1960s. The Jetsons first aired on ABC on September 23, 1962. It was created by William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, the same duo behind the Flintstones. And that comparison matters. Where the Flintstones took the modern American sitcom and placed it in the Stone Age, the Jetsons took that same kind of weird family comedy and launched it into the far future. The show was set in Orbit City, usually presented as a high-tech world from the 21st century. George worked at Spacely Space Sprockets under his short-tempered boss, Mr. Spacely. Jane managed the home, Judy dealt with teenage life, Elroy was the smart kid, and Rosie was the robot maid, along with Astro, the lovable dog. The world was full of ideas that seemed outrageous in 1962, but now feel strangely familiar. Video calls, flat-screen style displays, smartwatches, robot vacuums, moving walkways, automated homes, push-button work, all the cool stuff we're finally starting to see nowadays. The original run lasted only one season with 24 episodes, but reruns made the series feel much bigger than its initial run. The show returned in the 1980s with new episodes which helped multiple generations grow up with the Jetson family. Then, in 1990, the franchise reached theaters with Jetsons, the movie. The story followed George as he moved his family to a distant asteroid to run a Spacely factory, only for them to discover that the factory was harming small alien creatures. That film had its own production troubles. George O'Hanlon, the original voice of George Jetson, and Mel Blanc, the voice of Mr. Spacely, both died during production. Janet Waldo, the original voice of Judy, recorded the role but was replaced by pop singer Tiffany before release, a decision that remains controversial amongst animation fans. The movie made more than its budget, but critics weren't especially kind, and it didn't launch a major theatrical franchise. Ever since, The Jetsons has mainly lived through reruns, home media, crossovers, comics, and nostalgia. That's why a live-action revival feels like a big deal. What could the story be about? Warner Bros. Hasn't revealed the plot, so anything beyond the basic concept is pure speculation. But with that said, we can make some reasonable guesses based on the source material. A live-action Jetsons movie would almost certainly include Orbit City, George working at Spacely Space Sprockets, Jane trying to keep the family running, Judy dealing with a teenage futuristic social life, Elroy getting into scientific trouble, Rosie offering sarcastic help, Astro causing chaos in the way that only Astro can. But that's just the classic base. A modern movie will need more than just a string of sitcom gags. The 1990 animated movie added a corporate and environmental angle, with George learning that Spacely's factory was hurting alien creatures. A new live-action version could easily use a similar kind of modern theme. Maybe Orbit City looks perfect on the surface, but hides serious inequality, pollution, or corporate exploitation below the surface. Maybe automation has made life easier, but also taken away jobs and human connection. Maybe George, an ordinary worker in a future built on convenience, discovers that that perfect world isn't as perfect as it looks. These are mere guesses, of course, but they would make sense for a modern Jetsons film. The ideal version wouldn't turn the franchise into a grim dystopia. That would be missing the point. The Jetsons should still feel bright, funny, fast, family-friendly, and futuristic. But it also needs a reason to exist now. A good live-action film could use the futuristic setting to talk about technology, work, family, convenience, and what progress really means, as well as the cost of it. That would give the film a modern spin, while still remaining distinctly Jetsons at its core. Why the Jetsons still matter. The reason the Jetsons keep attracting Hollywood attention is simple. The concept is timeless. A normal family living in the future is still funny. In fact, it might even be more relevant now than it was in 1962, because we actually live in a world full of video calls, delivery apps, smart homes, AI tools, robot vacuums, wearable tech, and screens everywhere. The future that once looked silly is now partly real, and that gives a modern Jetsons movie a lot to play with. It can ask what happened to the optimistic future people imagined back in the 1960s. It can ask whether technology really made life easier or it just made work follow us everywhere. It can use George Jetson as the ultimate exhausted employee in a world where machines do everything except let him relax. That's why Jim Carrey, if he officially signs on, could be a very interesting George Jetson. George isn't a superhero, he's not a genius, he's not the chosen one. He's just a stressed out dad trying to survive work, family, and the future. And I mean, that's relatable, even if it happens in a flying car. The fan debate around the live-action movie. As expected, fans are already debating the idea. Some love the thought of Jim Carrey playing George Jetson. They see him as the perfect actor to bring cartoon timing, physical comedy, and emotional panic to the role. Others worry that Carrey might overpower the movie and turn it into Jim Carrey in space rather than a true Jetsons movie. There's also a debate over tone. Some fans want the movie to stay bright, silly, and old-fashioned like the original cartoon. Others want to see it updated into sharper sci-fi satire, closer in spirit to Futurama, The Orville, or even a family-friendly version. Are tired of Hollywood constantly mining old cartoons, toys, comics, and nostalgic brands instead of creating new stories. That criticism is fair, but The Jetsons may be one of the rare old properties that actually has a strong reason to come back. The original show was about the future. Now that we are living in a world that resembles parts of that future, a modern version could say something new. That's an opportunity. The danger is that Warner Bros. Will treat it like it's just a nostalgia machine, but the hope is that they treat it like a real family sci-fi comedy with some serious heart. Final thoughts. And with that, we've told you everything we know about the live-action Jetsons movie. Warner Bros. Is developing it, Jim Carrey is in talks to star, most likely as George Jetson, Colin Trevorrow is in talks to direct and co-write with Joe Epstein, but there's no confirmed release date, official trailer, full cast list, or production start date yet. The project has promise, but it's still early. That said, it's easy to understand why fans are excited. The Jetsons is one of the most iconic animated sitcoms ever made, and its future world comedy may be more relevant now than it has been in decades. I mean, flying cars, robot helpers, video calls, push-button jobs, and a stressed-out dad working for an angry boss in a world that was supposed to make life easier, honestly, that still sounds like comedy gold. Now, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like, share it with your friends, and let us know in the comment section down below what you think about the upcoming live-action Jetsons film. And if you want all the updates on this Jetsons movie, don't forget to subscribe to Marvelous Videos for more videos like this one. Until next time, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.